Hey, here we are back again. This time we're going to be talking about caffeine and how it can affect athletes. And I want you to know there is a lot of good research behind caffeine, and it does have some positive effects, but it also has a downside that we need to be aware of too. So let's first talk a little bit about what caffeine is. Caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant, meaning that it makes you more alert, okay? And it helps to increase the release of epinephrine. You guys maybe know this as adrenaline. And so that's one of the benefits of it. Caffeine has a psychological effect, and what it does is it helps to improve your mood and it can make the exercise seem easier to perform. So those are pros of caffeine. And we also know because it's a stimulant, it gives you that energy boost. Now, if we were in class, I usually have you guys interview each other to see what your practices are for using caffeine, but we can't do that today. But I am going to ask you some questions later on that you can go through that little process yourself. Okay, so actually I had a double slide in here, so let's go to the next one. All right, so a little bit more about caffeine and performance. For endurance activity, doses of about 200 milligrams have been found to be effective. When you take higher doses, like you go above 400 milligrams a day or before you exercise, this can get into an area where maybe you start feeling jittery. You know, you have energy, but it's not that good energy. You feel nervous, you're anxious. It can raise your blood pressure and get your heart rate up. And really high doses of caffeine can also cause GI distress, like stomach upset and diarrhea. And here you see I have a picture of Bang. You know, it's kind of like the new most popular energy drink out there. Serving a Bang is about 300 milligrams of caffeine. I am not a big fan of energy drinks. They're typically loaded with sugar and other ingredients that are not helpful for people. And even the sugar-free ones, you know, they can have sugar alcohols in them or sugar substitutes. So, but I did want to mention it out there, put it up there because I know that a lot of students are using it. All right, so sources of caffeine. All right. Come over here, you have 16-ounce serving size. You could see a Monster, full throttle, give you about 160 to 144. But then look here, these are the smaller servings of Red Bull and Rockstar. So that's why the amount of caffeine is so much less. Mountain Dew used to be the go-to drink for students before energy drinks became popular and available. That's what college students drank because it was pretty high in caffeine. If you look at a grande Starbucks brewed coffee, about 320, a general cup of coffee, about 16 ounces, 266. And there's a caffeine chart by the Center for Science and Public Interest that you guys can click on the link to from the PowerPoint, and it has all the different drinks that you may order out and what their caffeine content is. So it's kind of cool to look at. So in terms of being a banned or permissible substance, the NCAA controls caffeine. They allow athletes to have a small amount of caffeine, but it's very specific amount. It's 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine for every kilogram they weigh. All right, and so if an athlete consumed within that range, and then they had a urine test, and they would test out okay. All right, they would not exceed that urinary threshold for positive testing. So another kind of cool thing to know is that in the past, as a dietitian, I would tell everyone, you can't count caffeinated drinks as part of your overall fluid intake. But research has shown over the last 10 years or so that caffeine is not as dehydrating as we once thought, and most people tend to drink back the fluid they would lose through the caffeinated drink. So it's now considered okay to include a caffeinated beverage as part of your overall fluid intake, but not everything that you drink. Okay. All right, so we're back again. Had a little problem there. Let's get to the next slide. So I want you guys to be able to solve this problem. All right, how many milligrams of caffeine per day would be permissible for a college athlete who weighs 150 pounds? So we're going to go back up here. We're going to look at the limit, right? The recommendation or the limit is 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine for every kilogram the athlete would weigh. So we have to get the weight in kilograms. So 150 divided by 2.2, this athlete weighs 68.2 kilograms. Then we take his weight in kilograms and multiply by the lower end of the range, which is 3, right? Then we get 205 milligrams. And then we take his weight in kilograms again, 68.2, multiply by the upper end of the range, which is 6, and we get 409 milligrams. So that means this athlete can consume between 205 and 409, well, that should say milligrams of caffeine per day. So I'll have to fix that in the PowerPoint. That's definitely a typo there. That should say milligrams. All right. So I want you guys to look at this list and start thinking about how often you consume these beverages, okay, and what serving size you consume, okay, and start putting it together in your head what your caffeine intake might be. All right, so here in Florida in the South, people drink a lot of sweet tea, and tea is a source of caffeine. So how much sweet tea do you drink throughout the day, especially in the summer, right? Think about all those iced coffee drinks that are so popular now. How many of those do you consume a day? What size do you consume, right? How much coffee in general do you drink? Do you drink a cup of coffee in the morning from your Keurig? You drink a pot of coffee throughout the day, right? And start thinking about your energy drinks. Like I said, Bang is like one of the most popular ones right now, and one can of Bang has about 300 milligrams of caffeine. If you're drinking Bang and sweet tea, and you're maybe drinking a soft drink, a soda, which, things like Coke, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, they all have caffeine in them. And on top of that, if you're someone that's using a pre-workout, all right, pre-workouts, what gives them that kick, or what gives you that kick when you take them, is primarily the caffeine that they contain. So you should be aware of how much caffeine is in that as well. All right. So I think I already covered this before in terms of, again, that caffeine in moderation is okay, but it should not be all the fluids that you consume. Okay, so bottom line, are you interested in trying caffeine? All right, you want to see if it works for you. So a couple things to keep in mind. Caffeine has a greater effect. It's more effective on people who don't use it regularly, okay? So if you're someone that's what we call a habitual user, you use a lot of, you consume a lot of caffeine every single day, you can try abstaining from it for a couple days and then adding it to your workout to see if it makes a difference. But there's a big downside to that. You have to be really careful because caffeine has an addictive nature. And if you all of a sudden just stop your caffeine intake, you could end up with a really bad headache. And we call that caffeine withdrawal. So, which is something I kind of want to point out to you. All right. So if you are interested in trying it, think about trying a dose of about 200 to 400 milligrams an hour prior to your workouts. And you can easily get this in a cup of coffee, okay? And see if you notice a difference on the days you consume caffeine. All right, I think that's it for now. When we come back, we're going to talk about pre-workouts and amino acid supplements.